The story begins in a cafe where web novelist Yuil Shin is sitting alone and trying to get some story ideas. To make things worse for him, his deadline is tomorrow, but he just can't write anything. He can't focus on writing, so he picks up his phone to organize some apps, which is a clear indication that he is procrastinating. While organizing apps, he sees an app that he doesn't remember installing. The app's logo is a treasure chest, which makes Shin wonder what this could be about. He then opens the app, and the screen reads Godmaker. Shin thinks maybe this could be a game he installed but never played. After the loading screen, an ant pops up on the screen with a text message of symbols. Only two things one could read in that message were number 1 and God. Shin gets confused and believes it's just another badly coded video game. Having no idea what to do, Shin then taps on that ant. After that, we see Shin in a totally new world, which is nothing like the boring one he was living in. Shin is surrounded by the ants, but the ants are giant and large in numbers. Their bloodthirsty eyes are ready to brutally kill Shin, but he isn't nervous. Shin then lifts his hand and points his index finger, which is now called God's crushing index finger. Suddenly, a lightning strike hits the ants there, and many of them die within a second. A giant ant tries to attack Shin from behind to catch him off guard, but Shin still survives. Ant had the chance, but it blew it, and now Shin uses his middle finger, called God's condemning middle finger, to burn down the ants with blame. Shin causes a massacre using just his finger without getting any injury except a minor cut on his face. He then uses God's healing ring finger to fix it. Shin realizes the job is not done yet because probably the largest of them all is standing in front of him to avenge every one of his kind whom Shin has killed. Shin then uses his power to get a sword made of some kind of magical energy. He then launches his attack on the monster ant and reveals that this is the reason he's on a hiatus. In the real world, things aren't going smoothly for Shin because the fans are upset more than ever due to the hiatus. They are not happy because this is not the first time Shin has gone on hiatus, but they don't know this hiatus is different. The publisher told everyone the author is on hiatus due to personal reasons after he received a message from Shin saying he won't be back before saving the world. This all started one day when gates and dungeons appeared. Many monsters came out via them. They were huge and caused destruction everywhere. It became a tragedy, but for hunters, it was an opportunity. Hunters were the people who awakened the superpowers, and they used their power to hunt down monsters. Hunters were a hope for humanity to survive in the middle of this chaos. All hunters were not equal in terms of power and strength. Hunters were divided from SSS class to G class based on their abilities. The G class hunters are the weakest of them all, and they are not the best bet to save your life against the gigantic monsters. Also, it's very hard to change a hunter's rank in revaluation. Hunters became the need of the world, and a lot of people aspired to become one. We then see a girl who is a B+ hunter, but she wants to do an evaluation test to increase her rank. She is obsessed with becoming a higher ranking hunter as this will be her 10th evaluation, but she hasn't seen any success. When she looks back, there is a guy who was looking at her, and yeah, it's Shin. Here, he looks very nervous and weak and gets scared after seeing the angry look on the girl's face. She is in no good mood and believes Shin is some kind of pervert who has nothing better to do than look at girls. Before her anger could turn into something more aggressive, Shin gets a call, and he runs away. She couldn't understand what just happened, and suddenly the receptionist calls her name, 49, Miss Seong Miri. The receptionist tells her to go to the evaluation room for her test. Later that evening, Miri gets her results, which she nervously checks. Unsurprisingly, her rank doesn't change, she is still a B+, even though this is not the first time she has been rejected. This time it hurts her more, and now she wonders if she should just give up on the idea of increasing her rank. Miri then receives a notification on her phone, which immediately turns her sadness into anxiety. The message informs about a class monster called the Throned Bull who appeared in Seoul. The message clearly mentions that all the hunters above a class rank have to go there to help immediately. She doesn't know what she should do because she isn't a class hunter, but at the same time, she can't let people die by doing nothing. At the same time, the Throned Bull is causing mass destruction in the city, yet no hunter is there to help the civilians. There is panic among the people, and Shin is also present there with a kid. That kid called Seong-yeon falls down and scared Shin tries to pick him up. But the Throned Bull misses no chance and immediately tries to attack them. Shin grabs the kid and closes his eyes because he knows this could be his end. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning hits Throned Bull, and when it looks back, Miri is there to fight it. Miri realizes that even though she hit the Throned Bull with her lighting, it didn't take any damage, so she once again attacks it with lighting, but still no damage. The power of an A-class monster is far greater than that of a B-ranked hunter, and Miri now realizes this. She knows that it's impossible for her to take down the Throned Bull. Throned Bull launches an attack on her, which makes her fall down. She then asks Shin to run away because she can't hold it forever. Shin immediately runs away. Miri then decides she just can't defeat the Throne Bull, so she will use her complete strength to buy some time until a ranked hunters arrive. Suddenly she feels weakness in her power, and at the same time, the Throne Bull is just seconds away from taking her life. Miri sees a flashback where she was breaking down and crying in the middle of a destroyed city. Perhaps she lost someone in the destruction, and she is filled with a feeling of revenge. A woman arrives there and tries to calm her. She tells Miri to stop thinking about the revenge. At the present, this little memory gives Miri enough strength she needs to survive. Miri gathers all of her strength and prepares for an attack. She hears a voice in her head. It's like she has lost her senses because of the enormous power she is experiencing at the moment. Miri then hits the Thundered Bull with her Thunderstorm attack. The attack is so powerful that the entire sky gets covered by it. The attack works as it literally destroys half of Throne Bull's body. Everyone just can't believe what happened. A B-ranked hunter defeated and a ranked monster alone. Miri gains enormous popularity in just minutes and gets dubbed the Lighting Empress. Now everyone wants to meet Lighting Empress or get her autograph, but she is still in shock over what she has done, because she never thought that she was capable of defeating a ranked monster. Shin then arrives there and thanks her by calling her name. Miri says it's her pleasure to help the civilians and Shin leaves. This is when Miri gets shocked by the fact that Shin knows her name. She begins to wonder how he can know her name, and then she realizes it was his voice she heard back then in her head. But how can this be possible? Shin goes away, and Miri just stands there in shock because she doesn't know who Shin is. One thing she now knows for a fact is that he at least isn't weak and dumb, as he was pretending to be. He is definitely hiding something. Shin goes to a place alone, and interestingly, that place is popular as one of the places where people commit suicide often. But Shin isn't there for that. He knows that he and his niece almost died earlier but were saved by a hunter. Shin blames everything on his phone and wants to throw it away in hope of getting rid of this problem. If we go back a few days, Shin was sitting alone in a cafe, trying to write his story because his deadline is tomorrow, but he still couldn't write more than one line. He picks up his phone because he just can't focus on his work, so he decides to organize some apps. Suddenly he sees an unknown app that he doesn't remember installing. He clicks on it, believing it could be a game he installed a while ago. After starting it, the app indeed looks like a game, but the only thing he sees on the screen is an ant with a pop-up message. Curiously, Shin taps on the ant to see what happens. Suddenly, a coin comes out of his mobile screen and hits him in the head. A pop message tells him that he has squashed an ant to death and that this coin is a reward. This is all unrealistic and unbelievable, but Shin had no choice but to believe it because he knows how weird the world has become. He then gives a test to become a hunter, and during registration, people laugh at how common his name is, but surprisingly, Shin clears the test and becomes a hunter. Shin then begins to wonder what rank he will get. Can he be an A ranker or maybe a D ranker, which is not bad for a rookie. He is even ready to quit his job as a writer for that. His hopes and dreams get crushed the very second he finds out he is just a G-rank hunter. He is still a hunter, but not really the type of one he was hoping to be. The receptionist then tells him that he only got one god power, which is to produce materials. She then asks him if he wants to register for a license for 280,001. Disappointed, Shin immediately refuses the offer because he knows that he doesn't have that much money, and that the license is useless for him as long as he is a D ranker. Shin now finally accepts his fate, that he can't become a powerful hunter and quit his job. He is just not special like others. Shin then decides to go back and finish his work because otherwise he will lose his job, which he doesn't want to do. After returning home, he opens his laptop and sees only 3 words, "one day suddenly," and that's it. This was all he had written so far. Hopeless Shin then starts watching TV to distract his mind from the problem for a while. On the news, the reporter speaks about an S-ranked hunter called Baekhyun Hyan who just conquered Darkness Dragon's dungeon. It's an incredible feat to achieve, and everyone is praising him. Shin gets jealous of him because, unlike him, he is an S-ranked hunter. Shin changes the channel and then sees an advertisement about another S-ranked hunter called Seong Mina and her skin protection product. Frustrated, Shin then turns off the TV because he has had enough of high-ranking hunters getting fame and popularity. Having nothing to do rather than finishing his writing work, which he doesn't want to do, he decides to sleep for a bit to clear his mind. His sleep doesn't last long and gets interrupted by a notification. The sound of it just keeps buzzing, and Shin has to wake up to turn it off. He checks and sees that the same game he was playing now shows him a new message that reads, "the number 2. Shin then spends his entire remaining night squashing ants and collecting coins without any other worries. He continues to do this until he passes out to sleep. In the morning, he wakes up and sees that the number of coins is less than what he thought. But then he checks and sees that these coins are worth $100, unlike the other ones. When he checks his phone, he sees an option telling him that now he can open God's store. He sees two options, whether he wants to open it or not, and curiously, Shin taps on the yes button. On the other hand, we see a meeting of powerful politicians and businessmen regarding the Hunter Association. This meeting discusses a hunter who has arrived in Korea and has already opened the hunter shop. Everyone gets excited after hearing this because it's a rare ability that only a few hunters can unlock. They finally welcome the hunters, and we see two S-class hunters. First is Kang-woo, who unlocked the hunger shop. The second is Seong-mina. They both are here to meet someone special and powerful, the president of Korea. Everyone is excited to see the hunter shop, so one of the guys asks Kang-woo to showcase it. Kang-woo then opens the hunter shop. Everyone sees the energy in his hand, but they couldn't see it with their eyes. The organizer reveals that the shop can be seen only by the person who activated it. Seong-mina then uses her power to show everyone the hunter show, and this is the reason she was called here for. Finally, everyone sees the hunter's shop and gets shocked. This is the first time they have ever seen it with their own eyes. They see those items available in the hunter's shop that are believed to be just myths and legends. Everyone realizes how great it is to have the hunter's shop. The items in the hunter's shop are quite expensive, but in reality the price is cheap compared to their importance, and the president knows it. The president then orders to guard Kang-woo with two S-class hunters so he remains safe because he is now an asset to the Korean government. On the other hand, Shin tries to unlock the god shop and gets a message that tells him that it will cost 100 coins to unlock the god shop. Shin doesn't care about the price, so he agrees to it, and the money disappears. Shin finally unlocks the god shop, but he fails to read the names of the items. One thing he does understand is the price. Shin gets shocked by seeing the prices in thousands, millions, and even more because he only had 372 coins after playing the whole night. Now he starts to feel that all his effort is going to be wasted because he just can't gather that many coins. But suddenly the app scrolls down by itself and shows Shin as the cheapest item worth only 100 coins. Shin realizes it's the only item he could afford, and even though he couldn't read what it said, he still purchases it out of curiosity. He gets a message saying, "You have purchased the Eye of the Blind God." Shin gets more confused by it because he doesn't understand what it means. Suddenly he gets blind and, in panic, drops his phone. Shin gets blind after using the power, and now he has lost his phone too. He tries to find it but gets hit by the table instead. He screams in pain, and suddenly he gets his vision back. Shin finally feels a little better. He picks up his phone, and now, surprisingly, he can read the names of all the items, and they aren't confusing to him anymore. Even though he can see the names of the items now, the prices are still unchanged. They are still expensive enough that Shin could never afford them. The names of the items feel weird to Shin because names like Space-Time Regression or Summon Planet Devour aren't easy to understand. He then looks at the most expensive item in the shop, named Creation of Heaven and Earth, and sees that its price is in trillions of dollars. Shin doesn't know what power this item will give him, but he knows for a fact that it will be powerful. His G-rank status won't matter anymore. Shin starts to think about the partiality of the system. How it will keep G rankers, only G and S rankers will remain the same too. No one will be able to increase the rank. He then looks for the other items he could buy, and finding an item that cheap is not an easy job. But he finally finds one. Crushing the index finger of the god is worth 100 coins. Shin knows it's the only item he can afford now, and something about it interests him, so he proceeds to buy it. He gets a confirmation message for the crushing index finger of the god purchase. His curiosity wants to test this new ability, so he tries to use it by calling its name, crushing the index finger of the god. But nothing special happens, no lighting, no fire, or anything else. Finally, his TV gets turned on, and this makes him believe that his finger could be nothing more than just a remote, which is good for a mere finger but useless for anything else. Shin easily gets comfortable with his new power. He uses it to start all his electronic gadgets, and he realizes it's not all useless as it makes his life easier. He suddenly gets a call from the great man in charge, and the name alone scares him. Shin gathers up some strength and picks it up. The caller praises Shin for his extraordinary storytelling. Shin wonders in his mind how a simple story about ants can make someone a fan. But he also likes it because his work is finally getting some praise. The caller then tells him that the story is perfect, but there's a problem. Shin's happiness turns into anxiety, and nervously, he asks what's wrong and assures her to fix it immediately. The mistake the caller talks about is not having a next chapter and leaving the story at such an interesting point. Shin's anxiety fades away, and he gets angry inside because of the fear he just experienced. He assures the caller that he will finish the next chapter within 2 days and that the quality will be the same. Shin then gets happy because now he has a story idea that people like to read, so he can continue to produce his story. Shin doesn't go to write the story though, as he returns to play the game. Shin continues to kill the ants, and magically, coins appear. The next cheapest item he can buy is the Blessing of the God of Growth, worth 1,000 coins. Shin likes the word growth in it and makes it his goal to obtain 1,000 coins so he can afford it. He then focuses on the game probably more than he ever did in his story and continues to squash the ants. One by one, the coins are increasing and he is getting closer to his goal. Everything was going smoothly until a red ant appeared on his screen and Shin couldn't squash it. The red ant quickly changes his position to save itself from getting killed, and Shin gets annoyed by it. He believes this red ant could be a boss, and killing it could give him a huge reward, so suddenly he gets excited to squash the boss red ant. Shin obsessively plays the game continuously for hours, and morning turns into night, but he is still squashing the ants. It's midnight, I'm mad. Shin has reached level 801, and now he needs 200 more to get the title of Great Evil Good. Shin's face looks completely drained of energy as he was doing it for the entire day, but he hasn't reached his goal. Shin fails to force himself to play more and falls asleep with his smartphone in his hand. The next time he opens his eyes, he finds himself in a movie theater, but he is alone there. Before he could understand the situation more, a movie started. A movie shows an ant struggling to walk in the middle of the desert. The ant talks about the power of the black tribe and how he must tell the truth to his fellow brethren. The red ant finally arrives at the place he was supposed to be, a cave. He enters the cave, and we see many ants of his kind having lunch, and they all stop after seeing it. The ant who just returned explains to everyone about his journey and how he barely survived the god of the black tribe. Everyone starts to laugh at him and feels pity for him because black ants are just food for red ants, and it's shameful if a red ant loses to one. They all tell him to acknowledge his failure and kill himself, and they refuse to believe that anything like a black tribe god exists. Suddenly, a voice shuts everyone there down, and when they look back, they see an ant, who is actually the sage ant. The wise ant then calls the returner by his name, which is 808. Unlike everyone else, the sage believes him because he felt an enormous power too. 108 finally feels good about himself because someone is trusting his words. The sage then heals 808 and tells everyone that everything it is saying is completely true, and perhaps there is someone powerful wanting to kill them. Suddenly, Shin gets teleported back to the real world from the theater. He finds himself again on his bed, in front of his smartphone. He checks it and finds that he is still at the same level he left last night. He picks it up and begins to play again, but this time he sees something completely different. Last time there was only one red ant, but now there are several, and he also notices a sage ant among them. He realizes whatever he saw in the theater was true, and the black tribe's god they were talking about is none other than the Shin himself. Sage then suddenly launches an attack on Shin and successfully hits him in the head and makes a cut. Red Ant doesn't stop there. They launch more and more attacks on Shin because they know this is a battle of a lifetime, and no matter what, they have to defeat the Black Tribe's god to ensure their dominance forever. Suddenly the sky turns red, and they realize that God has finally decided to fight back. The sage warns everyone and orders them to step back, yet the beam hits one of them. Before the sage and other red ants could formulate a strategy to counterattack, the whole sky turns red and indicates the anger of God, and now this is their end. One by one, attacks hit them, and red ants lost their lives one after another. Shin is also angrily pressing the screen because he just can't take any more damage from ants. He overdoses and breaks his smartphone, and when he finally realizes it, the smartphone screen was already damaged, but a good thing also came out of it. Shin finally unlocks the title The Evil Good. Shin then starts to look at all the achievements he has just listed. After slaughtering all the red ants, his room is now filled with coins. Suddenly, a ring appears out of thin air, and Shin notices it. Shin grabs the ring and begins to check what this ring could do. He likes its smell, so he decides to try it. He wears it on his pinky finger, and suddenly he feels more active than ever, like all of his fatigue and stress have gone away. Shin feels frustrated even after spending the last 24 hours just tapping on his mobile screen. Shin gets another message, telling him that he has activated the Eye of the Blind God. Another message mentions the ring, so Shin reads it carefully and finds out that the 808 kept this ring for his entire life, and that this ring is good for increasing elemental power. Shin begins to wonder if this information is given to him by his Eye of the Blind God ability. He then checks it on other objects to find out. He uses it on his TV, and it accurately tells him that the TV is 1 year old, which is the correct answer. Shin checks it on every object he could find in his sight, and surprising enough, it works every time. Now Shin comes to the realization that if he has this ability and a powerful ring, there's no way he is still a G ranker. Shin decides to go to the Paranormal Phenomena Center to take a retest. He arrives there, but the receptionist tells him it's nearly impossible for the first test to be wrong. But Shin was confident he could change his rank, so he asked her to register him. The receptionist then tells him that the state only pays for the first test, and now that he's taking a second test, he will have to pay. The amount is more than 1 million, which immediately shocks Shin. He explains the reason behind the high amount is that there are always a lot of people waiting to give a test, and for someone to take it twice, he must pay the necessary amount. Shin then tells her he will take the test later, which annoys the receptionist because she feels that her time is wasted. Disappointed, Shin sits down and begins to wonder what he can do now, but then he realizes he has to write the story too, and the thought inside of him suggests that writing should be his main focus. Shin needs an idea to write, and a place full of different kinds of people can do the job. He activates his ability and begins to analyze people. First, he sees a man named Park, who is in his 30s and suffering from hemorrhoids. Then he sees a pregnant woman, and after that, a 41-year-old man who is suffering from E. coli. Shin finds it interesting that he can find secrets of people with that ease, because no one will ever reveal such secrets about themselves. Shin then looks the other way and sees a sad girl besides a poster. His vision tells him that her name is Seong Miri, and she's 19 years old. The vision also tells him that she's tingling. Shin finds it weird that he is getting such information. The curious writer inside him wants to know why she's tingling, but at the same time he is hesitant to ask her such a question. But he tells himself that curiosity kills a writer, so he just straight up asks her, "Do you feel tingling now?" Miri really doesn't like his question on top of her anger. After seeing her angry face, Shin tries to calm her, but her anger just grows more and she begins to prepare for an attack. Suddenly, Shin gets a call from Demon's sister and he rushes away. He takes the call outside and tells her he will take care of her daughter because he likes to spend time with his niece, but in reality, he is doing it just for money. He takes her niece to a park, and there she asks him what dark history means. Suddenly, the picture of Miri comes into his mind. Shin then squeezes her cheeks because of her cuteness, but his niece doesn't like it because this is an old habit of Shin's. He then uses his vision to find out that his niece wants to eat ice cream, which gives him an idea to cheer her up. He asks her whether she wants to eat ice cream, and she agrees. They both then go to eat ice cream, and his niece asks for a chocolate one. Shin checks his pocket to see if he's got enough money for 2 chocolate ice creams. His pocket was filled with small coins, and he realized he couldn't afford 2 ice creams, so he just ordered 1. The seller gets injured because now she has to count the coins. She then scoops less ice cream, at least, that's what Shin believes. He thinks this is an injustice for a 5-year-old kid who will be the future of the country, so he uses his index finger to manipulate the ice cream machine. Later, they both return to the park and sit down. Shin then gets a message on his smartphone. He checks it and sees a message saying cruel slaughter has been activated. Suddenly, the peaceful day turns into something horrific as Shin witnesses the thrown bull coming straight at him to attack. Later, he eventually gets saved by the interference of Miri and he survived. That night, Shin wonders why that monster attacked him and completely believes Throne Bull was there to kill him, but what could be the reason? When Throne Bull died, he received a message saying, "You have overcome the trial. Cruel slaughter has gone up by 1 rank." Shin finally decides he doesn't want to live such a troublesome life, so he comes to the decision of throwing his smartphone away because, after all, it was the reason for all of this. Before he could throw it, at the last second, he gets a notification. Curious, Shin checks it and sees a message saying stainless god with some symbols. We then see a place with 2 ants guarding it. Suddenly, one of them gets killed by a red giant ant. Meanwhile, someone is praying to the unknown god, and we see a white lady, scared for her life, hoping for a miracle because that's the only way they can get saved. The red ant approaches her, the holy woman. They are here to teach them a lesson for upsetting the empire. Shin on his smartphone sees all these and gets a message asking if he wants to help a small creature who is desperately asking for his help. After seeing her scared face, he realizes he was feeling just the same as the Throne Bull, but someone did help him, so now it could be his turn. The red ants once again remind the holy maiden of the black ant tribe that this is her end and she will be a good tribute to the emperor. Suddenly, the sky turns bright with a light, and when the red ant sees it, it is already too late. The unknown god launches his first attack and kills the red ant instantly. Shin gets multiple coins by killing it. After successfully saving the holy maiden of the black ant tribe, she wants to know the name of the unnamed god. Shin then types his name and gets a new title called Merciful Redeemer. Now he has both good and evil god titles, and not just that, he also gets 100,000 coins as a bonus. Now that he has 108,000 coins, he can buy a lot of things with them. Excited, Shin opens the shop and begins to browse the items. First, he finds the Blessing of the Growing God, which he always wanted, but it's worth only 1,000 coins. He immediately buys it, and magically, a portion comes out of the smartphone. He checks its description, which says that this portion helps in performing at the best possible physical level, and the more you drink it, the better. Shin then tries to drink to see what changes it will bring, but he quickly realizes nothing happened. He gets angry because now he starts to think this drink is a scam, but then once again reads the last of it. The more you drink, the better. Shin then orders multiples of the blessings of growth god and drinks them. After drinking many of them, still nothing happens, but his assimilation rate increases from 0 to 5%. Disappointed, Shin goes to sleep, and when he wakes up, he instantly checks his phone, which has now become a habit. When he checks it, he sees something he hadn't expected. An army of red ants were waiting to kill him. Suddenly, they all started to pop out of the smartphone. This reason is the increase in assimilation that resulted in the battlefield upgrade. All the ants surround his entire room, and Shin just can't think of an idea to deal with them. He could have killed them via his smartphone easily because he was there, but the situation now is different. He tries to run away, but unfortunately, the doors were locked. Ants have already started their attacks in the name of the Great Empire. Shin notices his window and thinks of jumping out because, according to his calculations, he won't die from the 3rd floor. He runs and jumps through it, but it was locked too. Now Shin is stuck and has to deal with the army by himself. He launches his first attack on them and wipes out a good chunk of the army. All the ants see the fierce look on Shin's face, but now they can't back down. They have to kill the unknown monster for the Great Empire and tribute its head to the Emperor. They march toward him to attack. They shoot arrows at him, which makes Shin more upset because he can't think of a plan to defeat them. Suddenly, he notices an insect spray and realizes it could do the job. He quickly grabs it and sprays it at the army of ants. The spray does its job and kills the ants. The red ants believe this is the true power of the unknown god of the black ant tribe. But now they can't save themselves. Shin then gets a message that tells him that he got a new gift from the high-class evil god, Soundless Nightmare. He once again gets the choice of either accepting it or not, and like always Shin, he agrees to it. During the same time, Miri trains to reawaken the same power she used to fight the Throne Bull. She felt most powerful during the fight, but now she can't reawaken it even after many tries. Suddenly, she feels someone needs her help in the city, who in reality is Shin, because his whole apartment is burning down and he is just there, unable to do anything. He tries to use God's crushing index finger to solve the problem, but it doesn't work and he gives up hope. He begins to lose consciousness as he sees his apartment burning down. Suddenly, someone breaks his wall and he sees Miri there to help him. The next day, he wakes up in a hospital. His whole body is covered, which makes it difficult to identify him. She asks him what the secret code is between them, and he tells her the right answer, which is that mom is a farty, poopy, fat grandmother. The answer is correct, and they both hug, but Shin's sister doesn't like this joke about her appearance. On the other hand, Miri realizes a pattern. Whenever she helps Shin, she somehow reawakens the power she always wants to have. Because when she was bringing Shin to the hospital, her power suddenly became stronger than ever, just like when she fought the Throne Bull. She begins to wonder if something has to do with the Shin or if it is just a coincidence. When she looks back, she sees Shin being angry in his room. We then see the Saintess Holy Maiden of the Black Ant tribe holding a special gift for the god. The rest of the tribe tries to convince her to rethink her decision to offer it to God, but she insists. She tells everyone that the decision has already been made, and she will offer the most important gift of the tribe, which is passed down from generation to generation, to the god as a tribute. Shin feels frustrated because of how much time the ants are taking to come to a decision. Suddenly, he gets a message asking if he wants to accept a gift from the Saintess of the Black Ant tribe, and once again he agrees to. Shin gets the gift of a Saintess, which looks like a small shape. He gets information about it that reveals it is used to increase vitality because it's a world tree fruit. Shin immediately ate it to see the effects, and at the same time, Murray was watching him do it. He feels sudden energy in his body, which shows the fruit is working. Miri can't understand what's happening with him from a distance. Shin then screams in pain because of its salty taste. But the fruit succeeds in doing the job, and Shin's injuries get healed and he feels healthy again. Miri can't believe what she just saw, because there is no way someone can recover from such burns this fast. She refuses to believe that Shin is just an ordinary human. Shin then gets another message, and when he checks it, it's the Black Ant tribe waiting for his blessings, and now Shin starts to think about what he can offer in return. The Black Ant tribe starts to worry because there has been no response from God. But Saintless Holy Maiden continues to pray because her faith in God is unbreakable. Suddenly, something starts to fall from the sky, and at first, everyone believes it's just the snow, but soon they discover it's not, but something magical they can eat and heal their injuries with. Ants get shocked by this miraculous thing, and now everyone starts to believe in God just like Saintess Holy Maiden. They knows no one can do it other than the god himself, so they thanks their god. In reality, it was just the sugar that Shin dropped upon them, and yet it worked magically because of how important the sugar is for them. Shin gets 101 new followers who have faith in him. Due to this, he also receives 10,100 coins. 100 coins for each faith. Shin too likes his new followers and the fact that he is a god now. Mary continues to stalk Shin because she wants answers to her questions. How can a mere grunt get his hands on such powerful portions that they can heal him instantly? She also wants to know how he knew her name. But the most important thing is if Shin can help her reawaken and surpass her powers. She hates the idea of stalking because she doesn't want her sister to know that she is stalking a guy, but this is the only way. Suddenly Shin calls out her name from behind, and Miri realizes how bad she is at stalking. Shin then gives her his ring to thank her. Miri initially refuses to take it, but Shin just hands it over and runs away. Later, Miri uses the ring and retakes the evaluation test. But this time she shows incredible strength and powers in the test, which leaves everyone impressed except her sister. Her sister then tells her that they are increasing her rank to A, but she should remember not to let the vengeance feelings control her. Miri realizes that if Shin can help her surpass her limits, there's no reason to seek revenge now. She also can't believe how easily Shin gave her this powerful thing or what the reason could be behind it. During the same time, Shin sees that the Red Ants have a new general, Kamakiri, who is planning a large army to take down the Black Tribe's monster, who is Shin. After seeing the massive army of ants, he immediately snaps out of it and believes it was all just a bad dream and not a reality. Shin then begins to wonder if there's a good possibility that this is true because lately he has seen pretty crazy things and he also murdered 100,000 red ants, which could be a strong reason for their revenge against him. Before he could worry more about the red ants, he gets a message from Soundless Nightmare, who asks him if he needs more power. Confused Shin asks him who it is because he doesn't know who the Soundless Nightmare is or why he wants to help him. The Soundless Nightmare ignores his question and proceeds to tell him that she should sacrifice 10 humans of his kind, especially of his blood group, and then he will gain a lot of power. Shin doesn't like this weird response because there's no way he's going to kill 100 humans, so he immediately blocks the Soundless Nightmare. The Soundless Nightmare tries to stop him from doing things because it wants to tell more stories. Shin then uses his god vision and sees the Savage Tribe making big preparations for a war against the Black Tribe's monster, and General Kamakiri announces that he will snatch the god's eyes with his own hands. The battle will be fought in 4 days, and when Shin checks on the Black Tribe to see how they are dealing with the situation, he sees that everyone is scared for their lives, and the only hope for them is their god, Shin. Shin knows his responsibility and decides to use the remaining time to prepare for the war. He goes in front of the mirror to see if his abilities allow him to do self-analysis, but nothing happened. Suddenly the analysis is complete, and it tells Shin that his specialty is being a loser. This doesn't help Shin in any way, so he picks up his phone and starts to browse the item shop in the hope of getting his hands on something good. He sees an item called Gehenna's Flame, and he kind of likes it, especially the name. He proceeds to buy it, but later he realizes it's not useful, and he just got scammed again. He is now starting to know how some items in the shop are advertised falsely while the real items are very different. He then gets a message from his publisher, who hasn't received a manuscript since a week ago, when Shin promised him one in 2 days. He tells Shin that he knows Shin might have some reasons for taking a break, but this can't happen always, especially when Shin has already taken the advance payment. Shin anxiously tells him that he has been having a lot of accidents lately, but he will quickly complete the next chapter, and the publisher agrees. Then Shin's assimilation rate increases from 5 to 10% because he is drinking a lot of portions. Shin is doing everything possible to become stronger and get prepared for the war against the Empire of the Savages. He also completes the next chapter after typing for hours. At the same time, Miri arrives at his building to meet and ask for a favor. He is also nervous to talk with him because she doesn't want to look like someone who is desperate for help. Miri rings the bell but gets no response, indicating he might not be home. But she then sees that the door is open, so she enters quietly. She checks if he's home by calling Shin's name, but all she sees is a broken wall and a laptop. We then see the office of the publisher as they wait for Shin to arrive. He messages Shin to check if he's going to be late again. But suddenly Shin arrives there with his work. The publisher is impressed by the amount of content because he hadn't expected this much work from Shin. The next time Shin opens his eyes, he finds himself locked in chains in an unknown place. He sees 3 men there who kidnapped him. After using God's ability, he identifies them all because he met them earlier in the market. Now they demand compensation from Shin for the damage he has done. Shin tells them that he can't pay them because he doesn't have his phone with him. They then show him his phone, which they have already stolen. Shin uses his ability to see how much time is remaining for the war, and to his surprise, the time ends and suddenly an army of ants comes out of the smartphone. The ants attack the man who was holding the phone and eat him completely within seconds. Now they get ready to take down their next target. Kidnappers believe Shin is controlling them to fight back, so they decide it's time to end it right there. Hyun, one of the kidnappers, uses a flame attack and burns down all the ants, which even shocks Shin because of how easily he got the job done. Hyun then confronts Shin about his brother, who just died, because he believes those ants were his doing. Suddenly something hits Hyun from behind and she falls down. We then see that the savage army isn't dead, actually they are from it. They are ready to use their weapon machines to attack, and after seeing this, the other kidnappers begin to run away. Shin shouts at him to save him too, but all he could think at the moment was saving his own life. He tried to open the door, but it didn't open, and suddenly the ants attacked and he died brutally. Shin realizes it's just like the last time he couldn't open his door. Now that all the kidnappers are dead, the only alive target is Shin, and ants moves towards him. Shin tries to free himself but fails to do anything. He realizes this could be his ant because the ants are so powerful. He closes his eyes as he accepts his end, but suddenly, thunder and lightning attack the ants. The lightning strikes down many ants, and Shin sees Miri. The Lightning Empress has arrived for his help. She attacks the Savage Empire's soldiers, and her power surpasses their strength. The general can't believe that the Black Tribe's god can summon such powerful soldiers who, taken together, can take down an army. General accepts his fate and decides that this battle will be his last and he will die here, but he also says that he won't die without at least taking the life of the god's servant. His army tries to convince him to retreat after seeing that they can't win this battle. General Lee doesn't say a word. He asks for more power from the emperor. He wants to do anything to protect the great empire. Suddenly, he kills all of his men, and this decision is a shocker for both Shin and Miri, because what could be the reason for killing the army as it will reduce its strength? But the general knew what he was doing because he gathered the power of 1,000 blades. Shin looks at him with his god's vision and finds out that he is going for Miri's neck to take her life. Before Shin could warn Miri or she could charge her attack, the general strikes first and cuts Miri's neck. After the smoke fades away, Shin finally sees what happened, and when he looks at the head of Miri, which is now separated from her body, he feels a great deal of pain. He couldn't believe Miri could die like this. He feels nothing at the moment except anger and a sense of revenge. The general is still on his feet and warning Shin openly that he will now send Shin to his subordinate. Shin feels helpless knowing that someone lost their life because of him. He then gets a message saying, "You ill Shin, you are a being that can change mortal fate." He gets the option of saying yes or no, but if he chooses yes, a large amount of coins will be deducted. Shin at the moment doesn't care about a coin or anything, so immediately choose yes. This results in the reincarnation of Miri and she gets her life back. Immediately, she prepares to attack the general. Shin then asks her to step back because he wants to kill the general himself. After seeing the insane rage in Shin's eye, she couldn't do anything but do what he asked. Shin then tells the general that this is his worst mistake ever for hurting someone who saved his life 3 times. Shin uses his god's condemning middle finger to attack the general. The general plays to counter it and loses his life. Even with his hands full, he doesn't stop praising the great empire. Miri realizes that everything she thought about the Shin is true, and he indeed has something very powerful. Miri then takes Shin as her master and tells him that she will fix the hole in his apartment by herself. She begs Shin to accept her as his disciple so she can become stronger under his training. She agrees to do anything to become stronger. Shin doesn't know why she wants to be his disciple because he thought the Lightning Empress is far more powerful than him. Shin then tries to write his story, but he can't focus on it when Miri continuously stares at him. He breaks his patience and asks her how long she is planning to stay in his house, and Miri tells him that she will stay there until he trains her. Shin tries to explain that he is just a goof and doesn't have anything to teach her. She then shows him the ring he gave her, which made her more powerful, but Shin tells her that the ring doesn't prove anything about him. Miri insists and tells him that she wants to make things right after her mistakes. Then they both fix Shin's room, and Miri designed the wall, which impressed Shin because now they looked better than before. Shin hears the sound of thunder and begins to wonder if it rains. But Miri tells him that the sound came from her stomach because she is hungry. Shin too realizes that she's been working for so long, so he asks if she wants to order something. Miri then gets an emergency alert, and she tells Shin that it's time for her to leave. Shin then buys her a portion to help her, and she gets amazed by how he did it. Miri compares him to Hunter Kang-woo, but he doesn't know who he is. Shin asks her to take care, and she leaves. Shin then goes to a local restaurant to eat something alone, and suddenly an emergency news broadcast airs on TV. The news reporter tells everyone that a S-class monster attacked the Congress. But thankfully, a hunter reached out to help, and that hunter is fighting the monster alone until reinforcements arrive. The reporter then reveals that the hunter who is fighting and saving the people is Lighting Impress. After hearing this, Shin gets worried about her because even though she is strong, she can't take down a S-class monster. We then see Miri fighting alone the S-class monster who has completely ruined the place. Miri helps everyone leave the place and then attacks the S-class monster. Everyone, including the news channels, was watching it, and they were cheering for her because they believe that the Lighting Empress will do another miracle by defeating it. Miri gets the upper hand early in the battle, which makes her feel confident. But then the monster shows its true power and smashes Miri at a distance. The monster then looks towards the other people to kill them too while Miri is lying down feeling the words of her sister. She then gathers her strength and stands up. The monster notices it and stops attacking the other people. We then see an angry Miri ready to fight back. And that's how the first part of this man ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a second part, comment below with the word loser. Also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell and like the video. But most important, leave a comment. Until the next video.